Good afternoon, Mr. Alan Sampang. It is my pleasure to talk to you about your role in your church. So first, let me ask you, have you ever thought of becoming a leader specifically in a religious group?
Well, becoming a leader, yes, but not in a religious group or not in a group inside the church. I have handled several leadership posts when I was still working in the corporate field, but never did it cross my mind that I'm going to handle a small group inside the church.
But what are the important matters you considered before accepting this post?
Well, like I said, since I didn't plan for it, I never really applied for the post. It just so happened that the previous youth leader approached me and she told me that she can no longer focus on the group or on the youth ministry since she has a lot of other new responsibilities. I guess it just so happened that I'm the perfect fit for the post during that time because I was once a member of the youth ministry of this church.
So you're saying that you're handling the youth ministry and it means that you're a leader now. But um, how are you dealing with the fact that once you were just a member of the youth ministry?
Well, before I thought it's going to be easier for me to handle the group because like I said, I was once a member and I experienced the stuff that they're experiencing now. That's what I thought. Um, but it struck me that the generation today is way different from the generation that I grew up with. So there are a lot of differences. I have to be honest with you, there are some cultures of the youth today that I wouldn't imagine that I would do during my younger years. So it's not really a huge advantage being a youth member before. I would just say there are some advantages and disadvantages.
So how will you relate this experience with your role now as a youth advisor?
Um, well, I can't really compare them. There's no apples to apples comparison because, like I said, the culture that I grew up with is different from the culture now. I mean, before it's kind of laid back. That was 10, 15 years ago. Now, kids are growing up in a very fast-paced society, so the culture is really different. Um, I guess we are still a piece of work in terms of communicating with each other, understanding each other. So I really can't tell if I can relate my past experiences to the experiences of the kids today.
So I understand that there are several ministries in your church. So how can you describe the organizational structure in your church?
Well, this church has a pretty much simple structure. We have a head pastor, and below him are the ministry heads, and then under the ministry heads are the members. So if you structurize it, if you draw a structured tree, it will be just as simple as that.
So how are rules and regulations handled by in each ministries by each leader?
Okay, in terms of rules and regulations, I can only speak for the group because we really don't have a generalized rules and regulations in this church. Rules and regulations were developed or were decided by the ministry heads, and they have developed those rules and regulations to address certain objectives or certain behaviors in the group. So, take for example, in the youth ministry, since it's one of our main objective to focus in strengthening our faith and to focus in helping each other out, we have come up with a schedule that each and every Sunday after service we're gonna meet, perform some devotions and counseling so we can strengthen each other. So that's one of the regular things that we're doing in the youth ministry.
So in line with this, there are many programs and activities in your church, and so tell me, how are these things managed by each leader?
Well, with regards to the programs or those activities, once again, I can only speak for the group.
Yes.
Um, we always start with a collection of ideas from the members. So each and everyone is free to present their idea. And then during the meeting, we will pick one idea and then try to come up with an activity revolving that idea. So it's pretty much that simple, and we make sure that each and every one of the group has some participation or some concepts to share.
So, in making important decisions in the whole congregation, what are the important things you should be reminded of?
Uh, well, first and foremost, your decisions should be in line with what is the Bible is saying.
Yes.
If you understand what I'm saying. We have to make sure that the decision should benefit not only the church itself, but also the churchgoers and the leaders. You know, in terms of decision, we always consider the growth or the spiritual growth of each and every members, regardless of what ministry. Take for example, in the youth ministry, I guess it would be safe to say that the final decision lies on me. But then again, I still have to consult it with the head pastor. So he has to tell me if he's gonna go with that kind of decision.
So this means you can considering the people you serve. So, as a leader, how can you help? Pe- how can you help people make connections between their service and faith?
You know what? Service is only a product of faith.
Mm.
So we always make sure that faith in God comes first. That's why we have come up with a schedule of weekly devotion so we can strengthen each other's faith. The idea is, if your faith is fully strengthened, then it's going to be easier for you to produce some service for the church or for the people in the church.
So this means that you're working for the people and with the people. So how about how should the leader manage his or her work in and outside the church?
Um, you know what? It's easy to manage your work in the church. Why? Because you're only required to work once a week compared to the corporate world where you are required 5 to 6 days to stay in the office. But here in the church, you are required to, well, not really required, but your obligation is just to make sure everything is managed at least 5 6 hours a day. In any case, we came up with a plan or with an activity that we just allot Saturdays for certain practices, additional meetings, you know.
So what do you think is or are the important tasks of being one of the leaders in your church?
Well, I guess you've heard this before. The reflection of the leader can be seen in his members. So whatever the behavior, um, the manner of speech, the attitude of the members, that's a huge reflection of what kind of leader you are. I would love to say, or in a perfect world, maybe you can say that you can control each and every one of them, but not in the real world. I will always go back to the fact that we are focusing and strengthening our faith, so all of them, or all of us, are well behaved, not only inside the church, but also outside the church.
So being a leader it's really not an easy thing to do. So what are you doing to ensure that you continue to grow and develop as a leader in your church?
Pray. Well, that's our bread and butter. We always start with prayers because our faith strengthens in prayers. And once again, like I've said a while back, if you have a strong faith, then if you have a very good relationship with God, then He will tell you what to do. He will tell you, or He will guide you what are the best decisions to make.
So it's all about faith.
It has always been about faith in God.
So as a conclusion, what advice would you give to someone going for leadership for the first time?
Well, first and foremost, it's not the most ideal job in the world, unless you really want to be a leader. Um, but well, in my case, while others are reading books about leadership, what I do is I always talk to my members so I can know them better. I believe in the fact that if you know your members, it will be easier for you to manage them. It will be easier for them to follow your lead. It will be easier for you to help them. So don't underestimate the power of a simple conversation with your members. That will give you very much help.
So, being a leader has a lot of responsibilities.
Right, right.
So that's all. Thank you for sharing about these duties and responsibilities
No problem.
of your being a leader in your church. So, thank you, Mr. Sampang.
You're welcome.